Takes you back, doesn't it? Well, I don't know. It depends. It can take you back. Or it might feel very current to you. It's the TV show that kicked off our obsession with reality TV. But 18 years and 327 housemates later, last night saw the very final episode of Big Brother. It started off as it was the biggest social experiment going at the time. The first episode was back in 2000. There've been 19 series since, and we've witnessed housemates pushed to the limit, facing the inevitable wrath of the public vote. There were some huge TV moments. 2004's winner, Nadia Almada, who was one of the first transgender women on television. Nasty Nick, who tried to engineer his way to the crown in the first series. Jade Goody, you remember, who found overnight fame in Series 3 and then became a cervical cancer campaigner before she died from that illness at the age of 27. It sometimes courted controversy. Last night's final saw 18-year-old blogger and Big Brother superfan Cameron Cole crowned as the final winner. Whether you've loved it or loathed it, it is the end of an era. It has changed pop culture. It has changed television. A lot of what we watch now, a lot of what we read, the people that we consider to be celebrities, all of this has changed because of Big Brother. Well, Honey Lancaster-James is a psychologist who's worked on Big Brother in the past. Hello, Honey.
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm really well, thank you. I think this is fascinating because so many people roll their eyes and say, I'm not interested in Big Brother. But actually, when you look at the impact that it's had, the cultural impact, it is absolutely huge over the last nearly 20 years.
Yes, it absolutely is. I mean, I remember when Big Brother started. I'm old enough to remember when it started. And I was a fledgling psychologist back then. And so for me, this was an absolute dream. We could just watch people doing everyday normal things like brushing their teeth, making a meal, having a chat. And this was new. This was so new. And I think one of the things that people perhaps now forget is how much of that has come from Big Brother. The way we now watch television, the idea of the fixed camera rig of watching people doing things all of the time, whether you love it or you hate it, you can't deny that this has had a huge impact on the way we watch television. We now want to see the kind of minutiae details of everyday life. And I think that is part of that. But also, this was the first time that the viewing public got to influence what they were viewing on TV. So I remember, when we were told, you can phone in and you can influence, you decide who's going to go. And that was so pioneering. And of course, now we take that in our stride and we almost expect almost every show on TV that we watch to be able to pick up the phone or go on an app and influence what happens. But back then that was so new.
Yeah,
I do think it's made a massive, massive impact on television and, as you say, on pop culture.
What I find fascinating as well is, as you say, if you hark right back to the first series and the conversations that they used to have about whether or not anybody is genuinely out there watching this, and you went from this group of quite naive, quite innocent people, not knowing how they would be received in the outside world, to now people choosing a career in some cases in reality television, people knowing how to manipulate a certain group of people editorially so the narrative would reflect what they want, how to cause problems in order to make a name for yourself. It is absolutely fascinating, the kind of awareness that has come alongside all of that.
Yes, I think you're absolutely right. And of course, now, we have whole careers that just didn't exist before. I mean, you mentioned about sort of social media stars and vloggers and bloggers and people who literally, this whole media landscape has opened up because now it is a career of choice for some people. And I remember in the summer talking a lot in the media about Love Island, and someone did a study that showed apparently you can make more money going on a reality TV show than you can if you go to Oxford or Cambridge these days. Now, I'm not sure we want to encourage that, but nevertheless, it has opened up this whole other avenue for people to develop income streams, even from their own bedroom or doing what they love. And I think what is really positive about that is that it has also really made a massive difference to sort of inclusivity, to seeing diversity on our screens and on the internet. So you mentioned briefly about Nadia, who was a transgender woman who won one of the series actually that I worked on as a resident psychologist. And it was fantastic, to see the difference that was making to that particular community. And of course, since then, we've seen other people go on our screens with various different disorders or difficulties or life-limiting disabilities. And I think it really has opened that up to everybody.
Has that been entirely positive, Honey? Because as you say, there are people who have have presented, a new and different and compelling vision that wouldn't otherwise have been on our TV screens. But also there've been lots of occasions of people, I mean, not just Big Brother, different reality TV shows where it hasn't necessarily been a positive experience. You can see that some people have been vulnerable, and it might have been damaging to them ultimately.
Yes, that's true. And, it's funny because lots of people always seem to say, oh, you're throwing them to the wolves, putting them on television. But what people don't see is what goes on behind the scenes in reality television. And I mean, I've worked on a lot of the big reality shows, Big Brother, Love Island. I've just recently worked on The Circle on Channel 4. And what I can tell you is this: there is a huge amount of effort, time, energy, resources put into safeguarding the welfare and the well-being of anybody who wants to put themselves on television, whether that's a big reality show or even whether it's just watching, one of these shows where you're watching people going for dinner with each other or whatever. So generally speaking, most production companies do put everyone through a psychological assessment with someone like myself who's experienced in that domain, to check that people, as much as you can, to predict whether people have the resilience to cope with it, whether they have a good support network and all of those things in place. But what we have to be aware of is we can't have a situation where we say, perhaps because you've suffered from depression or anxiety in the past, well, that negates you from going on television, or we can't have you go on these shows, because that wouldn't be right either. So instead, it's about assessing people to say, what additional support can we give you or put in place for you to help you through this process? And are you sure you want to do this? So, for example, I remember when the executive producers would always give what they called a talk of doom at the beginning, which was, look, this is how bad it could be for you. This is the worst case scenario. Are you sure you want to take this risk? And people do, because they want to go on these shows and they want that opportunity. And I think that's right. I think we should allow people to go on. But what is also right is that the vast majority of production companies take the care of their participants very seriously indeed, and often follow them up and work with them and help them even for up to a year after they've been on a show. And that is a great thing. And I think that's important. And I think there's more work to be done there about our building awareness and perhaps doing some research as to what it's actually like for people to go through these reality shows and come out the other side. But I think actually the biggest concern is the impact of social media, because what we don't have are enough regulations, in my opinion, to prevent people from being effectively abused on social media by the kind of keyboard warriors. Yeah. And that's my bigger concern. I think we should be doing more in that respect. People will want to go on television, and for many people it can be a great opportunity. There are many people who've launched great careers in doing so. And of course there are those people for whom look back and say, I wish I hadn't done that. Yeah. But that is life to a certain extent, and that's any job we choose to do.
And you're right, social media's changed a lot in that time, hasn't it? Honey, thank you. Yeah. Honey Lancaster-James, who's a psychologist who's worked on Big Brother. It is interesting the way it's changed the TV landscape. I mean, so many people now. It used to be that you had people who you saw on TV, and now everybody's on TV. You might have been on TV. You might be a former Big Brother contestant. If you have, maybe you had your moment on TV, reality TV, because of what Big Brother started.